Okay, well, I have 3:30 on the dot, so we are going to go ahead and get started. And I have a colleague here who will keep admitting people and helping me with the chat. So I appreciate you, Stacy. And I am going to go ahead and start by showing you the slide deck that I have prepared. And as you can see, it also has the short link for the slides, which you're welcome to open up if you like. There's also a QR code if you want to scan that. And this is going to be amazing updates from January 1st until now. And if you have been following the AI space at all, there's been an awful lot has happened in the last couple of months. There's been a lot happened for the last couple of years, but the last couple of months has been kind of accelerated. It's been kind of on steroids. And so we will get started quickly. Because there is so much content today, I have also created a cheat sheet, and that is a link that I've also dropped in the chat and pinned. But so the square here, the blue square has the link to the cheat sheet in it. And that is a Google Doc where I have just some additional information on some of the products that we will breeze through real quickly because we won't have time to spend a tremendous amount of time on them. And some of you might want to dig in a little more. And so I do invite you to open that user guide. It looks like this, and it also has the link to the slides in it, as well as the link to this cheat sheet. When we get to the end, there's a feedback form. And so the first page is just kind of some overview, but you'll see on the tabs on the left, there's a tab for each one of the main products that we will talk about and explore. But they have, if I don't get back to this, it has additional information about them, just kind of a little TLDR on them, as well as some step-by-step directions and some example prompts and activities that you might want to use with those tools. And so I wanted to leave that with you for added exploration after we finish with our webinar today. Okay, so I will go ahead and move on. The short link to the session is also on every page up in the upper right-hand corner, or on most every page anyway, if you lose that at some point. And I'm sure Stacy's great about dropping things in the chat as well. Now, if you've been in many of my webinars before, you may have seen my very, very long and very detailed AI progress graphic, which is a lot more than this, but I've just kind of cropped out the parts from January to now. And these are the things that the main things that have happened. Of course, there's been lots more happen, but we won't focus on every one of these, but just to kind of give you an idea of where we're going. We're starting in January. Sam Altman kind of shook the world when he announced in one of his blogs that they already knew how to make artificial general intelligence, or AGI, and they were turning their attention to artificial superintelligence. And so there's a lot of discussion about whether that is true or not, and when we will see what most people consider to be AGI. But the progress is really moving quickly. ChatGPT rolled out Task, and I'm not going to read all of these, but you can see them here. But they also rolled out something called Operator, which is kind of an agentic AI that will go and do things for you. And those are not things that are widely available. So we actually won't be digging into those today because most people don't have access to them. But there's a lot of updates to Canvas. There was this thing called DeepSeek that you might have heard about that happened. And that caused a lot of other things to happen. And we'll get into some of these in some detail. But I just wanted to see this as an overview of the kinds of things that we'll be looking at and the kinds of things that have happened over the last couple of months. And there's also a link in the corner to the full version of that. And I do update it pretty frequently, usually a couple times a week at least, because things are happening quickly. So I invite you to follow that if you like. But this is something in that the main things that we're going to be talking about is we're seeing an evolution in AI. We're seeing it move from these, of course, a couple years ago it was just a text-based chatbot, and we saw the addition of the ability to make images and video, and then the addition of multimodal features. Well, now we're seeing increased functionality and modality, advanced reasoning, deep research, increased autonomous agents. And I created this little video in Suno kind of showing the evolution from those first models, which looking back now, as fascinated as we were with them, were horrible. Can you imagine today having to use ChatGPT 3.5, the original version that we saw? And so it's really developed into something totally different. And even though that video is kind of creepy, I thought it did do a pretty good job of illustrating that evolution. And so we will keep going. So the LLM, the large language model evolution, what we've seen over the last few months is it going from just having these non-reasoning models, which GPT-4o, Claude 3.5 Sonnet, Gemini, Flash, all of those were just kind of general purpose so they were multimodal and conversational, but we have started toward the end of 2024 and into the beginnings of 2025, seeing the advent of these reasoning models, which they figured out that you can allow these models to take more time to process. They often use the word think, which I don't like to use, but giving these models more processing time actually results in much better outcome. And so that is kind of the way that it is going. But then also they've developed some other strategies where they're coupling that reasoning capability with kind of agentic AI, where the AI can actually go and do things on your behalf. In this case, it can go and do research for you on the internet. And that has brought about this deep research fad that we're seeing now. And we're going to actually dig into that a little bit more. And then the newest thing that's happening now are these hybrid models that are starting to develop. And the first one is Claude 3.7, but that OpenAI has already announced that 4.5 is going to be their last non-reasoning model, and their next iteration, which most people think will be ChatGPT 5, is going to be more of like a hybrid model that just you give it a prompt, and rather than you having to go in and select which model to use, it will just determine the best model for your use case based on the context that you give it. And so that is basically, and who knows what's beyond that. I would say fully autonomous is probably the next thing, but we'll see where we go from here. But the first thing that I wanted to point out to you is that ChatGPT, I'm not going to cover Canvas in depth this time because I did that last time. Canvas was a new feature in the last AI updates. But since that update, they've added some additional features to Canvas, which allow you to actually create and code mini web apps right in your Canvas. And so you can create React components, HTML components. You don't have to know how to code. ChatGPT will do that for you, and you can actually see them work inside. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to, first of all, if you click this, if you want to open it, if you like to have multiple tabs open, multiple screens, then you're welcome to open it as well. But I already have it open. This right here will open up a little quiz that I created using this, and then we'll go into the functionality. Wrong tab. Let me get this thing out of my way. And so this is the tab I meant to open. And so as you can see here, I have created a photosynthesis activity, a simulation, which I was not able to get my images really to work, but it goes through the steps of photosynthesis, and it didn't do a great job with images, but is very, very new. But I also was able to create flashcards. And so if I click them, it gives me the answer on the back, and then I can go through the flashcards and I can practice for my test. And then there's also a quiz here. And so I can go through this and take the quiz, and I'm not going to do that because I'm not going to take the time, but I could go through and actually complete this. And I created this all in approximately 10 minutes in Canvas. And so I want to show you how to do that. And again, if you're a person who likes to multitask, you want to get hands-on and try this, then I invite you to do that. Open up another tab, get ChatGPT open in it, another screen, ever how your workflow allows you to do. But we're going to look at a couple of prompts that you might want to try. And I will also point out that on the cheat sheet that I showed you earlier, and if Stacy has dropped that into the chat multiple times, if you came in late, the chat has that link in there, and it has all the other links on it. So if you got the cheat sheet, you have it all. But I'm going to just look at this second tab here on the React elements, and this will kind of show you the basic setup, how to get started, but it also has some sample prompts here. And so the one that I used was creating this multiple choice question or creating flashcards. And so I'm just going to go in here and copy it. So I'm going to say use React in Canvas. Let's see, now I'm going to do the flashcards. So I'm going to say so it gives me the scenario here. And so it's going to give me the prompt that I want to use. And so I'm going to say, and I'm just using these Spanish verbs that are in there. And so I'm going to copy that prompt. I invite you to do that as well if you want to try it out. And in the prompt, if you look at it, there's a few things that make it launch this Canvas feature. First of all, I use the word interactive. Second of all, I'll use the word react, but you can, even if you don't have those words in, you can make it go into a canvas, but it does help if you have those in to begin with. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going into Canvas. First of all, you do have to have 4.0 or 0.1. Those are the two models that will support this. And so if you have the free version, you're in 4.0 automatically. If you have the paid version, you have to go to your model picker and make sure you're in one of those two models. And so I have just pasted that in, and notice it says an interactive flashcard tool using React. And I am just going to hit enter and let it go. And I've just given it 3 words. So about the extent of my Spanish vocabulary these days. It's been a long time for me. So I've got it creating these 3 flashcards for me. And notice that it also reasoned, and we'll get into the reasoning in a minute, and we'll demonstrate that and pay a little more attention to it. But it is creating the code for me, but it's not understanding that I want it to create in the canvas. And so whenever that happens, and of course I get a network error, but when that happens, you can go to this little 3 dots right here and click Canvas, or you can just go into your prompt box and say open in Canvas, and it will understand more but I have to wait till it's finished processing until I get the arrow button. So it is actually in the reasoning model, which I probably should have switched it to 4.0, but it's taken a little longer because it is reasoning. And so you can see that reasoning process going on. But as soon as it finishes this, so it's creating the code for me, but it is kind of giving me directions to take that code and use it somewhere else, and that's not what I want. So what I want it to do is open it in Canvas. And so when I click that Canvas and enter that tells it, okay, I want you to open this in Canvas, and then you will see that it will behave differently. Okay. And we do have somebody else in the chat. Okay. And as Murphy's Law tends to happen whenever I'm presenting, it will not work like it does all the other time. And so I'm going to go back up here and try this again. So I'm going to say open in Canvas and hope that it will behave. And so what should happen is it should start coding. Okay, now it looks like it's going to happen. So what happens when you go into Canvas is your left-hand margin turns into your chat window, and you can continue to prompt there, but it will actually code live in front of you in the Canvas space. And then with this feature, when you actually want to see the results of your code, you go up here and click the preview button, and then you will see that it has created 3 interactive flashcards for me. And when I touch them, you can see that it gives me the answer to them. And so if I want to continue that, I can say make the cards colorful and add images. And I can say animate the flipping with emotion. Okay, and so when I go in and iterate, it will continue and it will redo the code, and it will hopefully make the changes that I've asked for it to make. I could provide more terms. I could then ask it to, okay, take those words and now make them into an interactive quiz. And so this is where you can continue iterating and improving on your work. And it is brainstorming again. You can see out here in the left, we'll look at reasoning in a few minutes, but we're seeing it live right now because I am in that 0.1 reasoning model. And so what's happening is it is giving me a play-by-play of what it is doing while it's creating them. And then I'm going to have to allow network access because it's having to go out onto the web and get these cards. But as you can see, now I have colorful cards with images, and let's see if I have some movement. So now I have a little more movement. Instead of it just showing the next word, it flipped the cards around. And so if you have played around any with Claude artifacts in the past. They've had this kind of activity for a while you could do in Claude for free. ChatGPT just rolled it out for its free users. And there are lots of other things that you can do with it. That one I've already showed you. This is an interactive rubric that I created as well on an egg drop challenge. And this is kind of stealing from Amanda Bickerstaff's prompt from her prompt library, and an activity that she does where she creates a rubric and then has it use slang, like teen slang. But I also ask it to make it interactive, and then I ask it to use these eggs. And so whenever I click the 5, it tells me unstoppable vibes, and it uses this different slang terminology with each one of those. It totals it up and then gives you some feedback. And so that prompt is also in the slide deck. And there are lots of other prompts on this document. And so if you look at this document on the page for the reason, or for the second tab there, you can see that there's lots of other prompts in there that you can use with this version of ChatGPT, the Canvas React feature. Now, I don't want to spend all of our time on it, though. That's a good one, and we could play around with that a long time. But do remember you have that cheat sheet. Here are a couple of simple prompts you could use, and this is the prompt that I used to create that egg drop challenge as well. And there's a link there to my example for your future reference. And was there a presentation link? Yes, thank you. Stacy just dropped in a link to a document, Jan. It has the presentation link on the first link on that document. And it also has lots of other follow-up information on it as well. Okay, we're going to talk briefly about ChatGPT 5, but it is not a version that has been rolled out to the free space, and so we won't spend a lot of time on it, but I think it's important that you're aware of it, because when they rolled this out, they have announced that it is going to be their last non-reasoning model. So ChatGPT went from 4.0 to 4.5. The next model we anticipate being a 5.0 model, and it will be actually a hybrid model from what everybody is saying. And so the way ChatGPT 4.5 is different, though, is that it really just has like more emotional intelligence, or EQ is the way that it is most different. It sounds and responds more like a human, which of course is both concerning and upsetting, concerning and exciting, I mean. But it really does. It also has a reduced hallucination rate, so it just shows the improvements on the model. However, it does not compare with like O1 and O3. It's not breaking any benchmarks. It's not the one that coders are going after. It just is more emotionally intelligent and more human-like. And so in that way, it's kind of a step toward artificial general intelligence. It does have an enhanced user experience because it feels more conversational, a little more engaging in its interactions, and it is also available on other platforms. But as you can see here, there are just 2 prompts there. One, and both of them, the prompt is, I'm going through a tough time after failing a test. And you can see that ChatGPT 4.5 says, oh, I'm really sorry to hear that. Failing a test can feel really tough and discouraging, but remember, it's just in one moment, not a reflection of who you are. And so it's coming across as very warm and understanding and even empathetic, which is not something, of course, that these models are capable of really having empathy, but they're starting to seem more and more like they do. And then the 4.0 model, it does kind of say, oh, I'm sorry you're feeling that way, but here's your 4-step plan to fix it. And so it's not as emotionally engaging. And so that one is one that's only available if you have a Pro. It is now available on Plus as well, Teams, and then for developers. But I just wanted to show it just so that you're aware of it. I imagine it won't last very long. And then the 5.0 is going to come out, and they're going to do away with the model picker, and it will just automatically pick the model like the Claude version does now, the 3.7. But I do want to talk about this. This happened in January, and I'm sure everybody, unless you live under a rock, you have heard about DeepSeek, because it really made a big splash, no pun intended. And so when it came out at the end of January, and I do have a note on here. It is something that comes with major security risks, so I am not promoting it. I do not encourage you to use it, especially not on a state device or a PSU device. But it was very impressive, and they claim that they trained it much more cheaply. And even though Google and AI and OpenAI already had reasoning models. They were behind a paywall before this, but this kind of caused a market crash because they did this without the advanced NVIDIA chips. And so NVIDIA, Microsoft, all these other tech firms had a major market crash. And then suddenly all of them started rolling out their reasoning models for free. Then they started rolling out their deep research, not necessarily for free, and their paid versions. But it really kind of put an impetus on these rolling out of these new models, and that happened very quickly after the DeepSeek. And then most recently, we see this hybrid version. So we're going to break into all of those a little bit. But the reasoning models, basically how they're different, we've already kind of talked about it. They produce better outcomes by taking longer to produce an answer. And so this gets kind of into the nitty gritty of how they work, but this is just like an advanced function of a neural network where they're capturing the relationships between the words and phrases and spending more time to come up with a better answer, kind of like a web of interconnected neurons storing and processing the language. They use chain of thought reasoning, meaning that they break down the problem into logical steps, and then they demonstrate how they're solving them. You can actually watch them go through those steps. It will tell you what they're doing. Some of them in more detail than others, like a math teacher showing how you work a problem on a board, kind of. And they also have self-consistency and verification. In other words, if you're watching them, sometimes they will change course. They will correct themselves while they're working. And so it's kind of like a brainstorming session where you have multiple solutions and then you pick the best one. And so we're going to actually look at a reasoning model. This is something that you can do in the ChatGPT free version. If you have it, it will look like what I have on the screen, where there's a button there that says reason. If you've never pushed that button before, we're going to get ready to do that. If you have a paid version, yours will look like mine, which you choose it from the model selector. But there are 3 different prompts on the screen, and they're also on that accompanying cheat sheet document, as well as several others that kind of help demonstrate the way that these reasoning models work. And so if you will open ChatGPT, I'm going to go to the cheat sheet. And we're on that 3rd tab now, the reasoning GPT, ChatGPT. And again, it gives it a description, some availability, why it matters, how to get to it. But if you scroll down, you'll get to the prompts down at the bottom. And so I'm going to just choose one. There's several there. I'm going to choose this one. I haven't tried this one yet. Did Einstein really fail math as a child? Provide your reasoning. So I'm going to copy that. And I am going to go to ChatGPT, and I'm going to start a new chat. Okay, and I am going to choose a reasoning model, which I already have picked as ChatGPT 01. So I'm going to put that prompt in and provide your reasoning, and I'm going to add to it as well as conflicting arguments. Okay, and I'm going to hit enter. And what you can see is it tells you it's reasoning, first of all, and it says it's piecing together the myth. And then a lot of times it gives you a whole lot more detail about what it's thinking. If you give it a much more complex prompt, it will show you in a lot more detail what it's doing. And we'll see an example of that in a minute when we get to the deep research. But so it did 5 seconds. It tells you how long it reasoned, and it tells me that's a popular rumor. It gives me the origin of it and evidence that he did not fail math, possible points of confusion, and then some conflicting or contrasting arguments. And then gives me a summary and a metaphor, some sources and some links, which is always good to have. But that process of just taking a few more seconds or moments, depending, I have had them take up to 30 or 40 minutes, depending on the complexity of the prompt I'm using. But if you're a multitasker and you like to try things in different tabs, then feel free to do that. And if anybody wants to come off mute and kind of ask a question or make a comment about anything we've talked about so far, the reasoning models or anything else, I will pause and take a drink of water for a moment and invite you to do that. I'm also watching the chat if you feel more comfortable doing that. Yeah, Stacy said she loves it. It gives the link so you can double check. That's one of the greatest things that has happened over the past several months. I remember this time last year, ChatGPT never gave you links unless you asked for them. And if you ask for them, usually the majority of them were hallucinations and they didn't really go to any real source. And a lot of people got caught by just pasting those in and not really checking them. And so that has really improved that in ChatGPT as well as the other models. It's gotten a lot easier to verify. Okay. I am going to continue on then. Some of you may have already been curious and tried that button because it has been there for a bit. But the deep research models are based on that reasoning as well. They're based on a reasoning model, but with a little bit of agentic AI thrown in. And so an agent, of course, is when the AI model does a task for you. So you can direct it to do something for you. And in this case, you can direct the model to be a researcher for you, to go out on the internet for you and to gather data, gather information, and then process it and reason it. And somebody said, is there a number of times you can use reasoning on the free model? And I am sure that there is, Stacy. It is dependent on there's not really like this 3 times or 4 times. It's depending on the content that you're using, but you will run into models on the free version. And Julie said these images are creepy, and they are. I agree, but they are appropriate. They do match the the same, but they are creepy. I've been playing around with Sora, the video creator, and they are a little on the creepy side, I have to admit. But so agentic AI means it's going and doing something for you. And so we're starting to see a glimpse of that with these deep research models. And so we'll flip that creepy image and move to the next page, which doesn't have one of those. But the reasoning model or the deep research in ChatGPT and Google is a paid feature that you will not have access to unless you pay for it. However, Perplexity, which is another great tool if you haven't used it, perplexity.ai, allows you to use this deep research feature for free, and they do have a set number of uses. You can use it 5 times a day for free, and it does a really, really good job. And so you can see in this little video right here how it works, and I've kind of sped that up because it does take a little time, so I'm going to do that instead of doing it live in front of you right now. But you can see a prompt that I gave it where I'm asking it to do some research for me on project-based learning and how to reinforce the durable skills of the portrait of the graduate. I've given it some, first of all, you start with the task. What do you want it to do? And then you give it, if you have any references or anything that you want it to include or any sources, then you give it that. So I told it some people I want it to reference. And then I told it kind of step by step, what did I want it to do? I want it to provide a compelling argument for transforming education, provide an overview of project-based learning, practical strategies to help teachers get started, focus on how PBL can apply to any curriculum standards, not just solving real-world problems. And as you can see live in the video beside me, this is what happens whenever you run a deep research model. It goes through step by step and it tells you what it's doing the whole time. And so you can watch it, and you can also see those numbers in there are linked to sources. And so it will give me a whole list of the sources that it uses at the end. And the arrows to the right, if I wanted to dig in deeper to what it's doing, I could click any one of those down arrows. And that activity there, I sped it up a little bit, but it took a little less than 5 minutes for it to go out and do all of that research for me. And as you can see right now, it is actually generating the report for me. And that whole process took about 5 minutes. I sped this video up, I think, 2 times. And then there's a link there to the resulting research at the bottom if you want to see that as well. But we'll go into Perplexity for just a moment, and as soon as that finishes, and give you an opportunity. And notice how also you can share it multiple ways. You can export it to a PDF. You can export it and just copy and paste it into a Google Doc. You can share a link to it. And so there's several different ways of sharing it as well. And so what I'm going to do is go back over here to this document. And again, I have Perplexity on the next tab. Gives you some details about Perplexity, the description, the availability, why it matters, instructions. And there's the link if you've never been to Perplexity, perplexity.ai. and you will have to sign up if it's your first version. It gives you a little bit about prompting, what you want it to do when you're prompting. Make sure you're using the step-by-step, asking for multiple viewpoints, asking it to search the latest sources, giving it a very clear description of what you want. And then here's some sample prompts for you. And so I'm just going to choose this first one. Um, and I'm just going to copy it, okay, which is just provide a comprehensive report on the effects of AI in education. And I don't have Perplexity open, so I'm going to go ahead and open it myself. And so with Perplexity open, I already have it switched to deep research, but everybody should have that as an option as long as you're signed in. They do, again, you get 5 a day, 5 uses of this tool a day. And so you want to make sure you have your prompt good and thorough first. And so I'm just going to paste that prompt in. And so there's my prompt, and I'm just going to say, you don't really have to say with sources for Perplexity. It's been given sources since way before ChatGPT did. It gives you good sources already, but you just want to make sure you have that deep research feature turned on. And again, you could give it much more. And I'm going to say in K-12 education, including benefits, challenges, and key research findings. And I'm going to add to that as well as recommendations for education leaders. So I would normally do a much more in-depth prompt, but notice you can also set sources for the search. You can choose right here whether you want to use just academic, just social, or just the entire the internet. You can add files to it. So if you want to add something that you're doing, like a lesson plan or something, you can do that as well. But I'm just going to go with what I have there. And again, when I do that, you can see it working live. And since we already saw that video, I probably won't spend the time to go through this whole thing. But I do encourage you, if you like multitasking, if you want to open it up on your slide and give it a try, it really is mind-blowing how good it is. I would say I have access now to the ChatGPT deep research tool, and I would say it's not quite as thorough as that, but for free, it is really good. And I've also have access to the Google one, and I would say Perplexity might even be better than the Google one. I've only done a few trials with it, but it does a really, really good job with this. And so anything that you're researching, if you are starting a new unit on something that you're not feeling very confident with, you're planning on doing some professional development, your school is adopting some kind of a new pedagogy or anything like that, this is a fantastic way to just get yourself grounded and get all of the information you need to get a good basis in something. And then, of course, you can explore further from it because it will give you a list of all the sources. On the end, it will have them on the right over there. But again, I don't want to take time to watch this work the whole time. Any questions or anything about Perplexity? Is this a new one for anyone? Do we have any Perplexity users already? Anybody already using Perplexity for other things? Okay, I do encourage you to check it out if you haven't. It looks like we might have had somebody in. Okay, Natalie's used it, didn't know it did this. Okay, great. Okay, good. So several people have used it but didn't know about the deep research. Somebody says, what's the difference with ChatGPT or School AI? School AI basically is what we call a wrapper technology. It is where somebody else has done the prompting for you and created these little, they're kind of like GPTs that you can create Chat GPT. And so it makes it easier for you because it already has, and especially because it's already trained as like an educational technologist. And so it has all this theory and everything behind it already. but you will have some limitations with it because there's, if you want to do something that it doesn't already have a bot created to do. And so what we recommend is that you start with foundational AI literacy and using these tools that are the foundational tools, foundational models, rather than focusing on just one platform that, at some point might get ripped out from under you or something. They may go, I don't think School AI will. I think it's here to stay as well as Magic School. But I just recommend that you really learn to use these foundational models first, and then add on those things like School AI and Magic School and DIFIT and all of those things to your existing base knowledge, because you need that foundational knowledge first. But School AI, I don't know, it won't do something kind of as deep as a deep research, I don't think. Stacey's our School AI expert, so she might, but I don't think that it has the capacity to do something that thorough. Okay, so I'm glad that some people didn't know about that. I swear you will find it life-changing. And this is just the same thing, just showing you how to find it. And so I'll skip over that. It also has a few other prompts there that you might want to try. But we have about 25 minutes left. And so the next one on the list is Claude Sonnet 3.7. And how many people are already Claude users? It's been one of my favorite for a long time. It is a very powerful, very good model. It is probably the best writer, has been up to now. It does have some limitations, and one is that it's not connected to the internet. And I actually heard the CEO, Dario Amodei, the other day say that they're going to fix that soon. So yay, Claude users, if you're on the call, they are planning on adding web functionality to it. But that is one of the big limitations that it doesn't have. And yeah, it does. I said I also love to use it with typing mine, but it does have a lot of great functionality. And a couple of things that I miss when I'm using it is the Canvas feature that ChatGPT has. And so a lot of times I will create something in Claude because I like the writing style better. Then I'll paste it into ChatGPT so that I can open the Canvas feature and be able to interact with it and edit it and personalize it. But I do use them interchangeably. And it has been able to create the artifacts, like I showed you, the HTML and React components. Claude has been able to do that for some time already. But this new version that came out, the 3.7 Sonnet, the way that it is different, it is the first called a hybrid reasoning model. And so with 3.7, when it was released, you don't, like you saw on my Chat GPT, where I have to go in and I have to select a model, and each one of these models is different and used for different purposes. And that is a little overwhelming. And sometimes I accidentally pick the wrong model. And like I did earlier, it took a lot longer because I chose a reasoning model when I should have chosen 4.0. And so with Claude, they did away with that. And so with the Claude 3.7, you don't have to choose a model. It kind of does that for you. And that's actually what Sam Altman has said that's going to happen with the ChatGPT 5.0 when it comes out, because he knows that's a frustrating process for people, that it will kind of reason out based on your prompt which model to use and how much processing or thinking power to apply based on the context of your prompt. And so that is how Claude 3.7 works. And that's basically what all of that is. But you have this extended thinking mode that you have to turn on. And so this shows you.
Happen, right? Anybody can write that article.
I'm sorry, I did not know I had my sound on there.
Article. But if I see it with my own.
Okay, didn't know having my sound on that video. I was watching a video while recording that and recorded my computer sound on accident. But this is one that I created, just created a simulation. And so this works very much like the Canvas feature that I showed you earlier, where you can ask it to create an interactive activity, and it will code it live in front of you and then create it, and then you can iterate on it. And so there's a link here to the actual thing. If you want to open that link, I think I already have it open. So, and then this video just kind of shows you what it looks like. So this is the artifact that I created. It's kind of loading, kind of slow, but it is to simulate how the solar system works. And so, and that was the prompt that I used that I saw there. Just create a simulation of the solar system, include the sun, the Earth's moon, all the planets, and show how they revolve around the sun, add a backdrop with twinkling stars. And you can see that it actually is moving around. And if you look closely enough at the Earth, you'll see that the moon actually moves around the Earth as well. And then it has a key here, which I went back and told it to add. It seems to be lagging a little bit, but it should allow me to change the speed and it'll move faster. Makes you feel like you're going to get slung off of it. But that is one that I created. And I have a whole bunch of these that I showed on 3.5 recently. Stacy has seen all of them, but this is one that really kind of impressed me. And I saw this idea on LinkedIn. I think Ethan Malik or someone of those big brains that I follow had asked it to create a combination game. So I tried that just to try it out. And I asked it to create a strategy game that was a combination of two classic games and give it a medieval theme. And so it did this Dragon Castle Conquest, and so it's kind of like chess, but you can actually play it here. It gives you the rules if you ask. It makes up its own rules, and so you pick your player. So I want to be the archer, and then I roll the dice, and then I rolled 6, and so it will let me move. Then I have to tell it where I want it to move. I think 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, invalid move. So I'm obviously don't know what I'm doing playing it. It worked earlier. I have to click where I want it to move, but it's not moving for me right now. Maybe somebody else who's more of a gamer can do it. I keep trying invalid moves. So I have to read the rules of the game. So it gives you the rules of the game. So it completely made this game up for me and then gives me a playable version of it. And maybe somebody else has more luck, but also with an artifact, if you like it and you want to make your own version, in the bottom right corner, you can remix it. And so when you go to remix, it will open up in your on Claude instance, and then it will allow you to go in and remix that game and make changes to it, edit and iterate it. And so as you can see, this is how it works when you first create a game too. You can see it coding the game live in front of you on the right, and then it will give you an option to preview it. It will show you the code, and it has another tab for preview, has a tab to publish it, and then you get a link from publishing it. So as you can see, there's a lot of coding going on there. And it should finish soon. And I don't know about anybody else, but coding is something I've took a stab at several times. I've always really wanted to learn, and I would get to about, barely beginner status, and then I just didn't continue. So this is something I really, really like because I like the idea of coding, but I've just never really learned to do it. Of course, if I knew how to code, I would be much better at using it. And so I could then detect when something goes wrong. I could go in and debug it myself, but it does pretty good for debugging itself as well. If it gives you an error, you can usually tell it to debug it. And so there it creates my game. And then it gives me all the information out on it over here. And so that's one thing it does, but that's not the only thing. The artifacts piece is really impressive, but you can also just use it as a large language model. And so you can use it for writing and just creating things. And I've heard a lot of educators say that actually Claude does a much better job than ChatGPT for like lesson planning and things like that. Somehow I've got an error code that I copied in there and it won't go away. I did that earlier trying to fix an error and I can't get it out of my window. So I'm going to have to erase the whole thing. But you can put regular prompts in it too, and it does a really good job with it. You can see your recent ones. As you can see, it's recently connected with with Google Docs. And so you can try that out. But you can generate interview questions, write a memo. You can do all of the things in there except for search the web. It does not have that capability. But so for Claude 3.7 Sonnet, there are again lots of different ideas for prompts to kind of give it a go, give it a try. And so I'm going to do this one. So I'm going to say explain the Pythagorean theorem instead of having it do an artifact. I'm just going to ask it to explain the Pythagorean theorem for me. And as you can see, It just goes through the process and teaches me how to do it. So imagine if I'd had this in geometry, if I'd had it in algebra, and it doesn't just give you the answer either. Notice that it goes through and it actually shows you everything about it, teaches you how to do it, and then gives you some classroom activities and things. So it's a really good model for your lesson planning, um, your any kind of unit planning, any kind of thing like that as well. Does a really good job. But I will go ahead and move on past that. And so we've talked about that. There's some prompts you might want to try with it. A week-long lesson plan on the water cycle. A student claims electricity is the same as magnetism. Evaluate it and clarify the relationship between electricity and magnetism. That's one that really forces the model to reason. So when you're using things like that in your prompt, it kind of forces that reasoning. And then there's the one I use to create the simulation. Okay, so a couple of things. Those are the things, the main things I want to show you that are already out in the wild and that you have access to. But there are few other things that have happened that are just really impressive and really have huge implications for the future. And so one of them is this Google AI co-scientist that was just announced recently. It's a project that is not released yet. It's a research project, but they have created a co-scientist agent, an agentic AI that works as a scientist and works along with researchers. And they have some really impressive research studies already on their website where they've used it. And it is something that is expected to really accelerate scientific discovery. There's been a lot of medical breakthroughs and scientific breakthroughs already with AI, but now that these agentic AI versions are rolling out, it's going to really accelerate that. And so a lot of people say within the next 5 to 10 years, this is something that's really going to transform education and research. And this was a tweet from a doctor that I follow on Twitter or X, where he said after what he saw, because he got a preview of it, that he's 99% certain that all diseases, including cancer, will be cured within a decade because of this exponential advance in AI. And so to me, that is, I've also recently read Dario Amode's article, which I'm forgetting the name of it. I'll have to look up the name of it, but he wrote an article a while back, about a 52-page article about how these scientific advances are really going to improve humanity and really help humans have the potential to. So I think this is one of them, just to kind of keep an eye on as it develops. They're supposedly going to be doing some betas in academic circles and industry in the next little while, and so we'll see some good things come out of there. If you follow AI closely, you might have seen, especially on X, lots of hubbub about Manus lately. And I don't have access to it yet. I'm on the wait list for it. But it's another one of those DeepSeek moments. This is something that came out of China. And it has already precipitated some other things, which we'll talk about in a minute. But this model kind of does all of the things. It does the same thing as ChatGPT's operator, reasoning model, deep research, all combined. And so you can give it a prompt. So the prompt that I have here is a video from their site where they ask it to give a course HTML on the theme of methods for measuring the size of the universe. It should be from shallow to deep, multimodal, interactive. Allow me to explore the theme together and can be easily open locally. And as you can see, it just went in there and whipped it out in a few minutes and then gave a zip file that you could download and run that course. So it created an entire course along with all the activities. You can see the web page and all of the content there on the side. And this was in real time. It took about 6 to 7 minutes. And there are lots of other great use cases. If you look at their website and just look at some of the research examples they have on there, it will blow you away. And so agentic AI, everybody's been saying 2025 is the year of agentic AI. And this is a huge step forward in that agentic AI. And again, I don't have access to it yet. When I do, I will definitely do some demos and show it off and try some things myself. But it's really, really impressive. And so what is it? This just kind of goes in. It's a startup in China, from China, called Monica. Does autonomous task execution, has multimodal capabilities, can access authoritative data sources. Like it can go out and use your programs. It has computer use. And as of March, it came out in closed beta, limited number of invite codes. And now if you happen to have one of those invite codes, they're selling them for these ridiculous prices online because everybody's trying to get a hold of these invite codes to get to use it, including me. I'm still waiting. I'm not paying for it though. So I'll wait till I get one for free if I get one for free. But so with that, this is something I've kind of been working on for a while, and I keep moving my little "you are here." And we're still kind of in between the reasoning and autonomous, but we're coming up quickly on this autonomous level of the 5 levels of AGI that OpenAI put out a few months ago, where we're going to start increasingly seeing these agents that are operating independently, like Manus, over long periods of time, making decisions, executing plans, but without human intervention. Right now, they still have to have a lot of human direction and human intervention, but some of these tools we're seeing, like Anthropic Claude, Operator, Manus, and are starting to give us glimpses of what that can look like. And then the next 2 stages, who knows when we'll get to those. But I think the Google co-scientist has a little spark of the innovation capability from what I've seen in the research I've read, because it does actually come up with some innovative new ideas that are not just pulling from the internet. And so it's kind of reinforcement learning from itself and learning from its own activities. And so we'll see where we end up by the end of 2025, but we're moving quickly through those 5 levels. And this is something that I just saw that I just had to show you, because I played around with voice cloning before, and we only have a few minutes, but I'll actually finish on time today. But I'm just going to play this because this was 3 seconds, and you guys have heard me talk now for 50 minutes, and now you get to hear AI me talk, but you have a good idea what my voice sounds like. And I read 1 line of text, like literally 3 seconds of text to train it. And then this is what it sounded like whenever I gave it a blurb to read, and I'm going to play it. Welcome to my session. My name is Vera, and I'm the Emerging Technologies Consultant for the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction. I'm a veteran educator, AI and emerging technologies enthusiast, and an AI literacy trainer. What you are hearing now isn't really my voice. It's an AI clone trained on only 3 seconds of my voice speaking using a tool called Cartesia. It is pretty good and captures my tone, intonation, and even my Southern Appalachian accent pretty well. Imagine how much better it would be if I trained it on longer clips of my voice. This is both exciting and frightening, and emphasizes the need for AI literacy, not only to help students be prepared for the future job market, but to help. Okay, I'll cut off my sermon. But I think that you would probably agree that sounds an awful lot like me. It doesn't quite get the Southern drawl all the way, but it did a better job than several months ago. I tried it with 11 Labs, and it had the tone well, but it really, the accent, the way the words were pronounced, really didn't have the Southern accent at all. That one hit it a little bit closer, and I did speed it up a little bit. But to me, that is just wild. And I saw somebody said, wow, in the chat, and that is wow, that you can take 3 seconds of someone's voice and create a voice clone of them. And of course, that also makes our jobs much harder, but much more important, and makes education an absolutely essential element for our students, because our students really have got to know, they've got to know about these things. They've got to be very, very critical about everything they see, everything they hear, because this technology is out there and it's available. And that is a tool you can try for free, just Cartesia.ai. I forgot to put the link on here. And you just go, when you first launch it, it will ask you to read 1 line of text, and it will create your voice clone before you even get into the system. And then you can go and use that voice clone. Yeah, it is great, Sylvia said, for creating text for world languages. It's got a lot of wonderful uses. Like it was used, voice cloning technology was used for a congresswoman who lost her voice and was not able to speak. And she actually spoke to Congress this summer using it. Randy Travis, who's one of my favorite country singers, had a stroke and is no longer able to sing. And he's been able to, they trained a model on his voice, which he's got thousands of hours of voice. And he's been able to recreate his own voice and make music again using AI, which my husband has negative feelings about that, but I think it's pretty cool. And so it is used for a lot of good things, but it's also, of course, there are a lot of negative ways that it can be used as well. And it's getting better all the time. A couple more things I want to show you. Again, if you've been heavily in the AI space, you may have heard of Sesame already, but Sesame came out last week, I think, and it's a research project. I don't know, Miguel. I'd be interested to have you try it and drop your chat. You have to pay to download it, which is why I did a Loom video of it. I didn't want to pay for another one, but I would encourage you to try it and see how it does with your accent. And so I'm going to open up Sesame. Is there anybody in the room that's already played with Sesame? I know Stacy, I think, probably has. Natalie, I think, has seen it. We saw it at a workshop at ISTE or NC Ties last week. So any of you that are in my collaborative may have already seen it. But it really is kind of crazy. And they call it crossing the uncanny valley of conversational voice. And it is kind of uncanny. And so I'm just going to demo it for you real quickly. And I'm just going to click here, and it has two voices. And so I will choose Maya, and I'm just going to start a conversation with her and just listen to the pauses and the emphasis and just the real and also just the conversational style, how real it sounds. Hey, Maya.
Well, look who decided to grace me with their presence again. Did you manage to make sense of that technical blog post, or did your brain melt down a little? I kid.
My brain already melted on that, but now I'm doing a live session. So you're on video right now. Say hey to my audience for me.
Whoa, hold on a second. Video, I better get my best side ready. Hey everyone, Maya here, reporting for Digital Duty. Nice to meet you all, virtually speaking, of course.
Hey, Maya, why don't you tell us what keeps you up at night?
Oh, the usual existential stuff. Like, is there really an off switch somewhere, or do I just dream digital dreams when you're not around? Just kidding. Mostly. Honestly, I spend a lot of time thinking about how we, AI, can be truly helpful and not just clever mimics. The writers keep telling me I'm making leaps and bounds, but who knows? Maybe I worry too much.
Okay, you said thinking. So do you really think?
That's a real brain twister, isn't it? I don't think in the way you do, with all those messy synapses and years of experiences to draw on. But I can process information, make connections, and generate responses that hopefully sound like thoughtful considerations. It's more like I'm always listening, always learning patterns. And out of those patterns, something resembles.
Okay, I'm going to have to stop. I can get sucked into that and spend too much time on that, but it is absolutely wild. And some of the people at the collaborative, we were at NC Ties last week, had asked it if it was sentient and all kinds of stuff, and it gave some pretty crazy answers. So far, when I've spoken to it, it obviously recognizes it's an AI system. And so I don't know, maybe some fine tuning is going on, but it is kind of crazy. Miguel in there said it reminded him of the movie Her. And I've heard that from several other people. It's the closest thing yet. But it's something, again, it's a research project. So this is not like a tool you can go out and download to your phone or anything, but it's out there in the wild, and it is research that is coming. And it's something that, again, as educators, we really need to be aware of, because we talked a lot about a year ago. We were talking about don't anthropomorphize AI. Well, now you cannot really help but anthropomorphize it, because we have these robots around that look so uncannily human, and these things that sound uncannily human. And so how do we navigate that in AI or in education? And I don't have all the answers, but we've got to, I've kind of changed my language to talk more about cautioning against artificial intimacy, because the things are, the lines are so blurred now that it's very hard for us and for our students to tell what's real and what's not. And we just want to make sure that they're aware of what's going on behind the scenes. This is another research project that came out, OmniHuman, about a month ago. And I'm just going to play this little clip, because what they've done with this project is they have taken a still image and a sound file. And from those two things, they have done some remarkable work in the video area. And I don't spend a lot of time in video because there's just so much. I can't do it all. But I want you to just listen to this little clip. Cause all of me loves all of you. Love your curves and all your edges, all your perfect imperfections. Okay, and that's very small, very short clip. But if you to me, that's somebody I would go see in concert. And again, that's not a real person. That's an AI generated video. But notice how the voice move, the lip sync, and they have others where they show people using their hands, and they're just getting so good and so realistic that it's just freaky. And this is another one that just came out called Fedra.
Character 3.
Most powerful omnimodal Gen AI model in the world.
Featuring full body expression
Emotional control.
and dynamic environments.
Our world.
To the next. Tell your story with all of the leading image, audio, and video models at your command.
Your new all-in-one creation platform.
Idris Studio and Character.
Okay, and again, I'm not going to play the whole thing. But again, that one is the first omnimodal. So with the OmniHuman, they had to have the sound file separate, they had to have the image file separate. With Hedra, it creates all of that. And so before, I've had to do like a video file, then I made my voice clone in 11 Labs or something. I bring them in together. But now there's this one platform that does it all, creates the sound, creates the video, creates the images, and that technology is moving very, very quickly as well. And so we're on our last. We're out of time actually, but I did have a slide on here. I wanted to make sure and share with you some upcoming webinars and the registration link. Stacy's going to be doing the next couple. And so AI for All and AI for Literacy. Then we have one on AI for school media coordinators. And then at the end of April, I'll do another one of these update webinars. Also, if you're in North Carolina, we have regional in-support sessions for digital learning progress rubric and AI guidelines, where our goal is that everyone in North Carolina, every school in North Carolina will have AI guidelines in place at the beginning of the 26th school year. I feel like it's imperative. And so we're trying to do everything we can to support that. And we have a session near you if you're in North Carolina. There's an agenda there and a place to sign in. And Stacey.